Hey everyone, here I have my new MOC Demolition. He took me about an hour to an hour and a half to build. He's upwards of 150 pieces, and I'd say he looks pretty good for how small he is. Here he is up to some of my newer MOCs. This is just a size comparison so you can see how big he is. I'd say he's probably about 10 inches tall. This is my current tallest MOC, and this is my MOC with the most pieces right now. So I would say he's probably just slightly above average in his height. This is not the tallest MOC I've ever made, though. I've made one probably about 3 or 4 inches taller than him, but right now he's probably my favorite. This MOC, I know it's not a very good comparison because it's a creature, so it's not really on the same level as just a more humanoid figure, but the top of his back is very tall for him being a creature. Now that you kind of get a sense of his scale, I'll just move on to the actual review. For the review, I went ahead and took away the gun, just so it's easier to look at some of the more finer details. I'll go ahead and start off with the legs since they're the least important part. I gave him a piston just for a little bit of extra stability when he's standing. I used this Bionicle big, I guess you'd say a flipper piece for his foot because that's one of my favorite Bionicle foot pieces, and it works very well because it's easy to attach a piston to. Then there's this maroon Bionicle armor plate. As I know of, the only Hero Factory guy that comes with this piece is Explode, and you can get him for very cheap on eBay, so if you want a lot of these maroon armor plates, I'd suggest to buy Explode, because I don't actually know of a Bionicle figure that actually comes with that armor plate in maroon. And the legs are symmetrical, they're completely the same. So I don't usually make limbs different, I usually just make them exactly the same, unless I'm making more of a rugged MOC. His arms are super simple, they just use a red ball joint to connect into that piece right there, and they move pretty well. They're slightly limited by Explode's shin guard piece. This is one of my favorite pieces that came out of Hero Factory 1.0. It's a really cool piece. I wish they had it in green and black, though, unfortunately. If you really wanted it in black bad enough, you could paint it. I've never painted pieces for MOCs, though, just because I like to keep them their original color. His arms and legs are very simple, just because I wanted to reduce the weight so he'd be a lot easier to stop animate. I haven't made a stop motion with him yet, but I do plan to make one very soon. His body is probably my favorite part just because it looks very good. There's not any weird colors besides right back there. I wish I could have come up with a different way to do that. There is a pretty simple way, but I'd have to add a little bit more weight onto the back to make it look perfect. And I don't really want to add any more pieces to this MOC because I think he looks good enough like he is. Also, I just wanted to point out, I added something that I don't usually add to my MOCs. I made him be able to rotate at the hip. I thought that would be a very useful, I guess, point of articulation for stop motion. I've never really made a MOC that does that necessarily. I don't usually make rotating hips because they can make it difficult when you're animating, just because you might accidentally bump him too much and he might rotate when you're not wanting him to. So it's just, this is the first MOC in a while that I've made that can rotate at the hip. I really like the use of this Hero Factory chest plate piece right here. I originally didn't have it, and then I decided I needed it because his chest looked pretty ugly, so I decided to put that plate right there, just to make it look a lot better. I like his overall stance. I think the shoulder plates really help him look a little meaner. I like this is actually Nitroblast head, but I like using it as jet bugs. I've always liked the 2.0 villain heads because they're very interesting because they have 2 heads. I like Jetbug's head way better than Nitroblast's, though. The only CCBS joint besides these right here, if you consider those as CCBS joints, is this little one right here, which I usually use one of those for the neck of every one of my MOCs, Turning him around back, he uses another one of these really nice Bionicle armor plates in black. And this little piece right there is just to plug in the belt for his gun. The only problem I see with him being able to rotate freely is that this piece right here that I used to connect both halves could get loose, which I hate that idea of that piece getting super loose to where he falls off or falls apart easily, but I could just replace the piece or just make it to where he can't rotate anymore. But then again, I don't keep up MOCs for very long, so he probably will be broken within the next 3 months. So I doubt between now and then that that piece could get that loose that quick. Overall, he looks pretty good for the amount of pieces that went into him. I really like his build, and I hope to be building more guys his style soon. Now I guess I'll move on to the gun. Here's his gun. It looks pretty good. It's one of my favorite guns that I've ever built. I like how freely the barrel can rotate. There's not really anything bad looking about it necessarily, besides some people wouldn't like the blue pieces that show through. I've seen some people who just color those, but I still want to keep them the exact same color. I wish that LEGO would make some of those in black. They might have at some point. I just have never been able to get my hands on them. I've taken off the belt piece just for the review of the gun, but it clips in right here, just for whenever I'm going to attach it to the MOC. This is not the first minigun style of weapon that I've built. I've built some others, but I couldn't find any of them. Most of them are buried in my pieces, or either that or broken. It took me about 10 minutes to find all the pieces and put it together exactly how I wanted it to go. Really, the only problem with making a gun like this is just you have to find a bunch of these barrel pieces. And it really starts wearing out the bin whenever you have like 20 of these used on one weapon. Overall, I really liked doing this review and making the MOC. Let me know what you think about them in the comments.